Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some very fun spice battles featuring a 1500 CP Great League Bastiodon in the Open Ultra League. After hitting Veteran yesterday, I figured what better way to celebrate than to have some fun, run a 1500 CP Bastiodon, and see if we can surprise some opponents and potentially get some wins as well. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out a Great League Bastiodon in action in the Open Ultra League. Hopping to the first match, leading my Great League Bastiodon into a Shadow Dragonite. I definitely do have to be careful of a superpower, but my opponent is going to save switch into Registeel, and I have a very nice counter awaiting that Registeel in Trevenant. Registeel is going to be firing off the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon lands, and unfortunately, I do get my attack lowered. That is quite unfortunate. I'm going to return fire with the Shadow Ball and grab a shield from my opponent. My opponent definitely trying to make a play for switch, so it looks like odds are they probably have a strong counter to my Bastiodon in the back, which to be fair, considering it's Ultra League, is definitely not a difficult thing to have. They're going to fire off another Zap Cannon. This time they do not get the attack drop, and that is quite good for me. I'm going to be firing off the Shadow Ball here. This will come very close to KOing. Shadow Ball gets them low with a sliver of HP. They make it to one final charge move. I let it go. Zap Cannon, barely not enough to KO. In comes the Dragonite, but they got very minimal farm. I'm going to bring in the Bastiodon. Shadow Dragonite over farming lets the Bastiodon make it to a Stone Edge, and from here, this should force the final shield. I'm just not going to shield the Bastiodon. I'm just going to trust in my Virizion with a shield advantage to close in the endgame. They do not bait. Superpower will KO the Bastiodon, and now it's all up to Virizion. Dragonite is going to fire off a Dragon Claw, but they are debuffed because they went for the superpower. So now I can just fire off the Sacred Sword. This will be taking care of the Dragonite. We'll see what do they have in the back. They have Galarian Stunfisk, and this game should be over, as Virizion is going to be resisting all of Galarian Stunfisk's standard attacks. Stunfisk farms up quite a bit of energy here. Honestly, I don't have to shield this move, but I shield it just out of an abundance of caution. Virizion will be able to make it to Sacred Sword number 2. Sacred Sword takes care of the Stunfisk as we win a game with Great League Bastiodon. Dream lead in the next match, Bastiodon into Charizard. Opponent save switches into a Shadow Walrein, and honestly, this is a bit of a difficult Pokemon for my team. Specifically with two grass types in the back, I don't really want to switch either one into an energy advantage Shadow Walrein. So I'm going to stay in here with Bastiodon and play it out. Unfortunately, I did get baited, so they are going to be able to significantly outpace and make it to the Earthquake. I'm not expecting them to bait twice, so I will commit my second shield onto my Great League Bastiodon. I'm farming up and I'm firing off the Stone Edge. Honestly, I'm hoping they shield this. If they expend both shields, then what I can do is after they Earthquake the Bastiodon, I can send in Virizion, double kick down, and then I should be very close to a Stone Edge to one-shot the Charizard. Virizion not quite able to get the farm down as they will reach one final move. Icicle Spear will do a lot of damage. Virizion farms down. Please send in the Charizard. In comes the Charizard, and this is going to be goodbye Charizard. Stone Edge one-shots the Charizard in the back. They have Ferrothorn, and this game is over. I can fire off the Sacred Sword, deal some damage, send in the Trevenant. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Moving into the next match, battling against the Bastiodon master himself, Caleb Peng. Picking up a pretty terrible lead Bastiodon into Jellicent. I'm going to save switch into my Virizion, and Caleb is going to respond with a Charizard. Thanks to Stone Edge, I will be able to force a shield in this matchup, and from here, I'm just going to let the Virizion go. Virizion has done its job, able to bait out the Flyer, and now I send in Bastiodon. And this matchup in particular is where you see the massive difference between the Great League and the Ultra League. Look how much damage a Blast Burn does. Oh my goodness, that is awful. I'm able to make it to the Stone Edge. Stone Edge will be taking care of the Charizard, and I'm going to look to immediately pivot into my Trevenant in the back. Caleb is running a Galarian Weezing, so a very, very cool team from Caleb. I fire off the Shadow Ball. Caleb's going to expend the final shield, but he is definitely going to be able to get shields back, as he's either going to be running Brutal Swing or Overheat. Either one will hit me for super effective damage. I'm going to be firing off the Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball is going to land, not quite enough to KO, and I'm going to expend the final shield. My opponent is debuffed, but Overheat would still do so much damage. And now, in comes the Jellicent. Jellicent makes it to the Shadow Ball, just able to outpace. I should have gone for a catch, but I didn't. And unfortunately, I am going to lose running Bastiodon to the Bastiodon master himself, Caleb Peng. Caleb's gonna fire off the Surf. I'm not top left, and I'm letting the Jellicent take me out. And that is a good game. Moving into the next match, picking up an absolutely terrible lead, Bastiodon into Trevenant. Now in the Great League, Bastiodon has a lot of play here, but as a reminder, this is an Ultra League Trevenant. Look how much damage the Shadow Ball does. Shadow Ball absolutely rocks the Great League Bastiodon. I can make it to a Flamethrower, but Flamethrower does not even threaten. The opponent can let this through if they want to, and they take it very comfortably. Trevenant is going to overfarm quite a bit, and they can just fire off a Seed Bomb here to get the KO, and down goes Bastiodon. I'm going to send in my own Trevenant. I will need to respect the Shadow Ball, so unfortunately, I don't have Switch. And I'm down a shield as well. We'll have to see. In the back, they have a Shadow Drapion. That is not good. I'm going to send in Virizion. The good thing here is that it looks like they're running Crunch and Aqua Tail. So at the very least, I am resisting both of their charge moves. I'm going to be firing off the Sacred Sword. This will hit for some solid neutral damage. Virizion continuing to farm. Opponent throws on alignment and gives me a double kick for free. That is quite nice. Crunch is going to land. Opponent is going to switch out and send in Ampharos. They're actually running a Shadow Ampharos. Shadow Ampharos can definitely output a lot of damage. Sacred Sword is going to land. Ampharos looking to overfarm. I'm able to make it to yet another Sacred Sword, putting pressure on the shield. Opponent is going to let that through. In comes the Drapion. They are putting their full faith into the Drapion here, and honestly, I actually have a bit of play here. I have a ton of energy on Trevenant. I should be able to reach a move on Virizion. So their play is they're going to have to overfarm a lot with this Drapion. I overfarm, throw when I'm at 7 Shadow Claws just to try and hide how much energy I have. And the Gambit ends up working out. Opponent overfarms too much. I win CMP, KO the Drapion, and somehow get the win. Terrible lead in the next match, Bastiodon into Defense Deoxys. I'm going to save switch into Virizion. Opponent is now going to respond with an Air/Mandibuzz. Definitely good to bait out the Mandibuzz, but I'm not even going to be able to force a shield here because they are running Air Slash. Air Slash hitting for double super effective damage, tearing through Virizion. Virizion not going to be able to make it to another Stone Edge. So unfortunately, I'm just going to have to send in the Bastiodon and look to go for an incredibly aggressive farm down. My hope is that now that I've baited out the Mandibuzz, that they're going to be ABA weak to the Trevenant, and that Trevenant is going to be able to sweep in the endgame for me. Foul play is going to land. Mandibuzz putting in a lot of work against the Great League Bastiodon. Bastiodon farms down. In comes the Defense Deoxys. I'm going to fire off the Stone Edge here. I actually stay in this matchup basically hoping that they throw some energy. Unfortunately, they do not, so I switch in Trevenant, and now they're going to fire off a Psycho Boost. Psycho Boost will be shielded in the back. They have Shadow Drapion, and I concede the match. Hopping into the next match, leading Bastiodon into Walrein. Definitely a lot less comfortable of a matchup in the Ultra League. Opponent switches out into a Jellicent, and this is perfect as it allows me to align my Trevenant onto the Jellicent. Jellicent is going to bait with a Surf. Definitely unfortunate. I'm going to farm up and fire off the Shadow Ball here. Seed Bomb would not KO, so I'm going to full send it. Opponent calls the bait, and I'm able to KO. In comes the Walrein. I'm going to be firing off the Seed Bomb here. Seed Bomb is going to be dealing some nice chip damage. I'm going to overfarm here and win CMP. Opponent overfarms, tries to throw as I reach the Shadow Ball. I'm able to win CMP and force a shield from my opponent. My opponent makes a very nice play here. They undercharge the Icicle Spear and get a perfect farm down. I'm going to send in Bastiodon. Bastiodon, unfortunately, is going to be hit with an Earthquake here, so I will shield at the last possible second. In the back, they have Swampert, and I don't have Leaf Blade, but they do not know that. As you can see, my opponent concedes the match before seeing I don't have Leaf Blade, and that's game over. Alright, moving to the next match, leading Bastiodon into Trevenant. We saw this lead earlier, and how miserable it is now that the Trevenant is 2500 CP. Bastiodon farming up. Trevenant firing off a charge move here. Shadow Ball deals massive damage. I'm going to return fire with the Flamethrower. As we've seen, Flamethrower can very easily be tanked by Trevenant, but the opponent is going to commit a shield. Honestly, that works pretty nicely for me. Farming up, opponent does not want to take a second Flamethrower, so they're just going to go for the Seed Bomb. They do leave with a lot of HP on the Trevenant. They're going to pivot into Shadow Drapion, and I'm going to send in Virizion here. Basically a calculated gamble that they don't have Sludge Bomb, and they do. And at this point, I'm basically in shambles. I'm going to be firing off the Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword will deal some solid chip damage. Virizion farming up. I'm going for the Sacred Sword right away because I just need the chip damage onto the Drapion. Sacred Sword is going to land. Opponent goes for the farm down. They're not able to get there. In the back, however, they have Shadow Charizard. And at this point, this game is extremely over. I'm going to fire off a Seed Bomb bait, trying to get any possible advantage. I have 2 shields, but I'm not even sure I'm going to get the ability to use them, as my health is being absolutely shredded by Shadow Wing attack. They are going to make it to the Double Dragon Claw, so I will get a chance to use both my shields, but as you're going to see, it's not going to help me. Trevenant banked the Shadow Ball, opponent makes a beautiful combo play, and that is a good game. We see same leads again in the next match, Bastiodon into Trevenant, and catching all these Trevenant on the lead definitely has me missing my Aurorus, as Aurorus does extremely well versus Trevenant, whereas this 1500 CP Bastiodon is absolutely struggling. Shadow Ball rocks the Bastiodon, opponent goes for a Flamethrower catch onto Obstagoon. I'm able to save my energy for later and send in Virizion. Virizion, of course, does have a dominant matchup here. They fire off the Cross Chop. That is not going to do a lot compared to the double super effective damage Virizion is inflicting in return. They go for Cross Chop number 2. I'm going to throw 2 more double kicks and fire off the Sacred Sword just before I reach 100 energy. I don't really want to go over cap there. They're going to let this through and more than likely send back in the Trevenant. Stone Edge not going to be lethal here, but it will do a solid chunk of damage. Stone Edge is able to land. I'm going to continue to farm up here. Not quite able to make it to the Stone Edge, but I'm hoping that they're not entirely accurate on their counts, and we do get a shield. Unfortunately, Trevenant is able to farm down. I have a move on Bastiodon, but there's no way I'm winning CMP. I'm just going to use Bastiodon as a mid shield here. Opponent is going to fire off the Shadow Ball. It's all up to Trevenant. In the back, they have Aurorus, and I'm going for the Seed Bomb right away. Trevenant, since I do have the small energy lead here, should be able to KO with the Seed Bomb before they're able to reach their 3rd Weather Ball. It should come down to a CMP tie because I do have the 1 Shadow Claw head start. They're going to fire off another move. I will commit the shield, and now I can farm up to the back-to-back Seed Bombs. With this sneak, they just received the energy for the 3rd Weather Ball here. Opponent is going to commit the shield, but lose CMP to Trevenant. Now the question is, can 2 Shadow Claws KO here? In comes the opponent. Shadow Claw cannot KO. They make the move. Shadow Ball KOs, and that is a good game. Hopping into the final match, and what greets us on the lead but a Shadow Charizard Bastiodon. Absolutely feasting. Opponent save switches into a Shadow Snorlax, and I'm going to respond with Virizion. Opponent going to fire off a Body Slam. I will immediately no shield here, as I do comfortably tank a Body Slam. I'm going to let that through, and then go for the Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword not going to KO, but will do quite a lot of damage. And here, arguably, I do believe I made a mistake in the match. I think I should have overfarmed more here, because as you're going to see, by not overfarming, Shadow Charizard is going to get a perfect farm down as I fall just short of the Stone Edge, and my opponent, very precise in their counting, knows it's just a Sacred Sword, and they let it through. So now I've given Shadow Charizard a massive energy lead, and this Shadow Blast Burn is going to rock the Great League Bastiodon. In the back, they have a Shadow Abomasnow, and this is incredibly bad. I go for the catch, unfortunately not able to catch the Energy Ball, and this is basically just going to be game over. Weather Ball lands. I will be able to make it to a last second Shadow Ball. My only hope is that for some reason my opponent decides to no shield, which they do! Oh my goodness! And somehow we are able to survive and get the win. All in all, I definitely had a lot of fun in these battles. Great League Bastiodon definitely would not recommend using in the Ultra League, as I definitely lost Elo while running it, but the wins that I was able to get, especially leading Bastiodon into Charizard, were incredibly fun to play. So overall, I would argue it was a very successful experiment. Even though I did lose Elo, I had a lot of fun along the way. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.